All right, guys, welcome back to the Everything College Football Podcast. Today, me and Nick are going to be doing our 2022 Boston College preview and prediction. Make sure you guys subscribe. We'll be doing this for all 65 Power 5 teams and a handful of Group of 5 teams as well. Looking at this coaching staff and some of the offseason headlines, Jeff Hafley, the former Ohio State defensive assistant coach, his third season, 11-11 record. Okay, offensive coordinator John McNutley, his first season, he's a former tight end coach for Notre Dame. Hem Lukaba, his third year here under Hafley. Boston College, they lost 4 of their final 6 games last season. Bowl game was canceled. Zion Johnson, he went 17th overall to the Chargers. They had 20-plus players out against Wake Forest in the final game of the year. It was a bad beat last year for Boston College. They had a really impressive squad coming into the year. Phil Dracovic gets hurt early on in the season. The offense just was not the same after that. 16.4 points per game in conference. When Dracovic came back, he played in the Final Four. They won 2 of them. He had 300-plus yards against Georgia Tech. Overall, though, the offense didn't show much at all throughout the season. It was a very unfortunate sequence of events, but I do like Dracovic a lot. 6'5", 226, very tough. He can stand in the pocket and deliver. Great off play action. And that's important because running game wasn't all that bad. They improved a good bit. They were one-dimensional in 2020. And they didn't really have much of a pass game this year. But I think this upcoming season, Nick, they're going to have some balance.
I think this Boston College team definitely disappointed to a degree last year. You know, their bowl game gets canceled. That bowl game was supposed to be played in Boston. There's going to be a strong fan presence there. It could have been a good way to cap off a season that had a lot of expectations at the start of it. You know, Zion Johnson, very talented player. He ended up getting drafted in the first round, really talented player. So definitely interesting to see what this team can do. I look at this offense, like you said, Dracovic coming back, fully healthy. I think he has real potential, very solid player. I like the way that he looks on the field. I think he has some serious potential as well. In general, I think the offense has some potential here. I like the running backs. I think there's some players that could get some nice seasons. You know, you look at the running game, it was decent last year. Like we said, Garwo over 1,000 yards on the ground. I think, you know, that's going to work. Zay Flowers is such a popular name. You know, he's been linked in the transfer portal to a lot of different teams, but he ended up staying in Boston College, fended off the money, didn't take the money. He stayed there, and it's going to only improve as a player. I'm really excited to see what he can do this year.
Yeah, looking at Alex Sinkfield, backup running back, solid carries last year. Not a lot of juice all around in this backfield. They got some hard runners, though. Xavier Coleman, he's a more slippery back. I think they might get him involved in a few different ways, a redshirt freshman. Like you said, though, the pass-catching group, Zay Flowers, he leads the way, one of the nation's top pass catchers. Vertical threat with great hands, 44 grabs for 746 yards, 5 scores. Like you said, he declined big NIL offers that remain here with Hafley in the program. Jaylen Gill, former Ohio State guy, he's going to get some more touches this year. Tajee Johnson, 6'4", made a name for himself this spring with his ability to catch on the outside. I think he's going to be a big emerging player. Jaden Williams, 5'9", 176. He's got some of that quickness with the undersized frame. Dino Tomlin, Mike Tomlin's son, he might see some time as well. Overall, I think this is a solid, talented offense. They should certainly be able to get back on track with Dracovic healthy this fall. Excited to see what they do on that front. Another reason I was disappointed in this team last year with what happened with Dracovic because of the offensive line. I thought they were one of the nation's best, and I think they kind of proved that as well. Zion Johnson ended up being a first-rounder, for example. The unit, though, they were not as strong as I expected, regardless of who was at quarterback. Dennis Grissel, by the way, who played at quarterback last year, he was not very good. This offense struggled immensely. They do get Christian Mahogany back. He's the lone starter back on this offensive line. They lose 4 starters, 6'3", 335 at right guard. He actually scored a rushing touchdown in the spring game, so look out for that. You might see that a few times in the red zone. There's some older guys that will take over the starting roles here, besides Drew Kendall, who's a redshirt freshman at center. How do you feel about this offensive line?
It's definitely concerning when they lose this guy's Mahogany coming back. He has real potential here. Zion Johnson was such a great player. He gets drafted in the first round. Definitely disappointing for this offensive line. You really thought they'd step forward. They looked to be the best thing that this BC offense had going for it, and they just kind of fell flat in their face in prior protection. Like you said, Mahogany, that little trick play threat there, maybe in the red zone. Maybe we see him get a carry or two. That might be interesting to see what they can do with that offense in general. I definitely going to need a lot of stepping up from some guys. These guys, they don't have a whole lot of experience. They're going to have to step up, make some plays here. Definitely interested to see what this offensive line can do. It definitely looks a little weak. They have a new offensive line coach for this team. Interested to see what he can do.
Looking at the defense, I expected big things out of the secondary last year with the talent they had coming back, along with Jeff Hafley being a longtime defensive back coach. They certainly delivered. The pass defense was great. Top 5 in numerous categories. That includes being 3rd in passing yards per game allowed. They do lose 2 starters, but Hafley likes the potential of veteran Elijah Jones opposite side of Josh DeBerry, who is one of the best in the conference. DeBerry, he lines up in a variety of different positions, comes off the edge as a run stopper with 8 tackles for loss last year, has respectful ball skills, 5 total plays on the ball last year. He's also a pretty rangy tackler. They do get back Jaden Woodby as well. He had 56 tackles last year in his first season with the Eagles. That was actually second on the team. How do you feel about this secondary, considering how good they were last year?
There's a lot of potential here with this secondary. I think Elijah Jones is a solid player. Josh Avery, like you said, one of the best in the ACC, very talented. I also think a guy like CJ Burton, a bit underrated. Interesting to see if they can play him on the inside, maybe move him to the outside, and you want to keep DeBerry at nickel. I think that's a very, very talented player. DeBerry's a very versatile player, he can play anywhere. They lose a couple of starters. I'm excited to see what Burton can do. He's a very exciting young player. In general, Elijah Jones is solid. And you look at Woodby, like you said, 53 tackles, solid there, not too bad at all from him. Definitely interested to see what this team can do on defense. I like the secondary. I like the coaching on defense. I think they have real potential here to step up and make some good plays.
Yeah, I think they're going to need some more help from their pass rush, though. It's crazy how good they were considering how bad this group was. Only 21 sacks, which isn't the worst in numbers. I've seen worse, but penetration as a whole was very lackluster, and it showcased that against the run as well. They also struggled to slow down opposing ground games. Overall, this defensive line, they just need to give more effort and get more production, which I think will be a little bit easier with some veterans coming back. Marcus Valden and Sheeta Smith, both defensive ends, are back. Tyus Clemens, a player they're excited about, they're on the defensive line. Donovan Iziriquio as well. Overall, they need better production. Athleticism at linebacker, it's not ideal, but I think Vinny DePalma and then Arnold there, they were two of the top tackles last year, and they are back. You look at games like Louisville, Syracuse, GT, though, they could not stop the run one bit. They were getting absolutely demolished. This front seven is certainly a little concerning, but DePalma and Cam Arnold coming back, along with some of those guys they like on the defensive line, I think they're in for some slight progression, but I'm not very optimistic about it.
The big promising thing for this team is that they bring back a lot of players. Like you said, you highlight a lot of guys who are returning. They can definitely take a step forward. They're going to need to take a big step forward. Those 21 sacks, they definitely going to produce a little bit more. I like Arnold and DePalma. I think that's a really solid duo there. I like that pairing. I think Bryce Steele, interesting, another guy you can look at here. He might have a good season as a sophomore. I expect big things out of him. General, just disappointing a little bit last year. They're going to have to step up. It's nice that they bring back a lot of guys. That cohesion is there. I kind of like that. Interested to see what they can do. Very interested to see how this defense is going to form.
Looking at our schedule, preview and prediction, I think they'll start the year off 3-0 against Rutgers, Virginia Tech in the conference opener, and Maine. And then after that, I think it's going to be a bumpy road. Florida State, Louisville, Clemson, Wake Forest. Then they get back on track with two duds against UConn and Duke. I think they'll beat Syracuse at home to cap off the season and become bowl eligible. This is actually a quite tough schedule, I'd say, from September 24th till November 19th. Very tough opponents on there besides the two there. And on October 29th and November 4th. 6-6 is the prediction. I think the passing offense will find a pulse this year. Last year, like we mentioned earlier, they could not throw the ball one bit. Dennis Grissel was not very good. I think they'll have some solid balance on offense. That's certainly going to be the unit that leads this team to the promised land. The offensive line, though, very young. And then the front seven, like I just mentioned, not a unit I'm very thrilled with. I think they'll have some important players like Josh DeBerry. Some of the guys on offense that will have big-time seasons like Zay Flowers. Great individual production from some guys overall as a football team, though. It's hard to predict more than 6 wins, especially when you look at the schedule.
6-6 feels just right for this team. I honestly think they might even lose potentially to Rutgers as well. Maybe pick up a win against Florida State. I think Zay Flowers will be definitely the impact player here. As long as he can make a lot of moves, make some good impact, this team is going to run through him. I think they have some potential here. It's not an easy schedule. Got to play Clemson, got to play NC State, got to play Wake Forest on the road for those last two against NC State and Wake Forest. Those are going to be tough matchups. They got some nice games against Maine, against UConn, against Duke. Those are definitely winnable games. Like you said, Syracuse. I don't think Syracuse will be very good this year. So this is right where they belong. 6-6. That's kind of where they're going to be. They're going to squeak into bowl eligibility. Interesting year. That's definitely not what they're really hoping for in Boston College. They definitely want to look a little bit better, but I think there's some progress to be made here. I think this team can improve over the next couple years and maybe start to contending a little bit. But right now, 6-6 is right where they belong.
And they had lost 21-6 last year to Syracuse. I think that's certainly a game they could lose, especially if they can't stop the run any better than they did last year. Sean Tucker will have a field day. 6-6, though, that is the final verdict. Nick, appreciate you joining me as always.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
That's it for today, guys. Make sure you like, subscribe, comment. See you next time.